Howdy, everyone. All right, so I've got the wings on the airplane. I've got some bolts in it, and I was getting ready to do some work on getting everything set up correctly for drilling the rear spar. And then I remembered this list of instructions here. This is directly off of the van's website. It's Wing Incidents Drilling Simplified. This is also on their webpage, but I went ahead and printed it out so I can have it with me. Do yourself a huge favor. Read this through. It's only little over 2 pages. Read it through. Make a copy of it and have it with you out at the airplane when you're installing your wings, because it's very, very helpful. And this put my mind at ease a lot on some of the things that I was concerned about, because with my particular setup, like I said, I've got the fuselage level and I had the wings bolted in with 4 bolts per wing. And I was getting ready to do my measurements and things like that. So one of the first things that I wanted to check was the sweep of the wing, which is basically the wing being swept this way or swept back in relation to the fuselage, because of course it's bolted here on the main spar, but the wingtip is still free to sway fore and aft. So I had checked that, and I had some forward sweep, about a 1/2 inch, and I was fooling around on the back trying to get the wings pulled back to get rid of the sweep, and I had some interference problems, and I'll show you that right now while I'm talking about it. It's a little dark in here today. The sun's not quite coming in through the garage door windows quite yet, so it's a little dark. But if you look in here, so this green piece here is the fork. Basically, I call it a fork that comes from the fuselage. There's a piece here and there's a piece on the other side. This silver part here is the spar that fits in between that fork. And you probably won't be able to see it, but when you look at the reflection on the side skin, use the side skin almost as a mirror. When you look at that reflection, on the back side here, on this green fork half, the end of it is hitting this rib here. So the back side of this green fork has to be cut off a little bit. You can see I still have some space on the spar itself before it hits the fuselage. It's actually going to hit that domed head rivet before it hits the fuselage, but I'll talk about that some more here in a minute. But for both wings, it's this back half here of the green fork. Like I said, if you use the skin as a mirror, you can see where it's the end of the fork is hitting this rib of the wing. So I got to take very little off of that one end on both wings, on both sides of the fuselage for both wings. But you'll note that when you're building the wings, the instructions tell you, there are specific instructions to tell you how to trim the wing spar. And they do mention that you might have to trim the 2 forks that come out of the fuselage, but they don't give you any kind of diagram. They're very specific about trimming the spar for the wing, but nothing on the trimming the forks other than you might have to trim them. When you look here on these written instructions, they do mention, they explain how to do the plumb bobs to check for the sweep. And then it does say somewhere, down here, it says, in general, if the tip of the wing is swept forward 1 inch, then you can trim 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch from the end of the rear spar. Or not from the spar, but from the bars, the 2 green bars I was just talking about, that fork. You can trim up to 1/4 of an inch off of that. Now you have to maintain minimum edge distance, which is also talked about back here, which is very critical. Just keep that in mind when you're doing your trimming. I have to take very minimum off. I'll take no more than 1/8 of an inch off of mine. But these instructions are really great, and they do tell you to, right here it even says to get real. It says the two measurements should be the same. Get real. Within 1/2 inch or so will be fine. So I could potentially leave mine the way it is, but I do want to get it better than 1/2 an inch. But that's quite large in my opinion, but I was happy to see it because, and they do go on to talk in these instructions that you want both wings to be the same. The angle of incidence isn't as critical. It's more so that both wings are matched. And they explain all that in these instructions. So definitely print these out. Definitely read them. Definitely use them. Oh, here's the trim detail I was talking about. So they do specify exactly how to trim that rear spar, but they don't give you specs for trimming the fork. So you literally have to fit the wings, check for sweep, and then if you're not happy with the sweep, you have to take them back off and trim. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take both wings off. I'm going to trim those fork ends on both sides, and I'm going to reinstall the wings and then check it again. And I'm actually going to go through that process with you as far as hanging the plumb bobs and checking for sweep. So this is probably going to be a kind of a lengthy segment. There's a lot of rigging that goes on with setting up the wings, and I'm going to try to videotape that step by step for you guys and walk you through it. All right? So let me get these things off, and I'll talk to you later.